Hey y'all, I'm Lauren and welcome to Cantina Cast. Today I am talking about issues 3 and 4 of the Mace Windu comic written by Marc Bernardin. I did recently make a video covering issues 1 and 2, so if you're new to this series, definitely check that video out first. But long story short, the reason I picked up this comic is because Mace Windu is one of my favorite characters. Really, anything that he is involved in, I am interested in checking out and I want to read. And I'm always wanting more of his background, more of his thoughts, all of that. And so I went into this comic hoping that we would get a little bit of that. And while we do get some cool Mace moments when we see him actually in action on a mission in this comic, we don't really get a lot of background. So that was something that I was hoping for that I didn't quite get in this one. I still had a lot of fun with the series and I still overall enjoyed it. But just know that if you're going into this comic looking for background on Mace, it's probably you're not really going to get a whole lot. I think I was influenced by the Yoda comic that I read recently and how that comic did get into Yoda's background in a way that totally surprised me and I felt like it really delivered. And so I'm hoping that at some point we get something like that with Mace. But it just didn't happen in this particular series. But despite that, like I said, we still get to see him on a mission. We get to see him in action. So if you're a big Mace fan, then this comic still might be a fun read for you. But if you're not really just looking for like another story about Mace on a mission, then it might not be a must read for you. So it's really up to how much you love Mace, honestly, is what I think. So picking back up with issue 3, Mace and Azita do successfully escape from the cave without those people that are spying on them catching them. Or I guess it's really just that they haven't decided to make themselves known yet, but Mace and Azita also don't notice those people either. They get out of the cave and Azita takes Mace to her speeder. And at this time, Azita is reiterating that she just cares about surviving. She kind of gives a little bit of insight into her tough background. So, kind of like what I was talking about in my previous video about this series, she's really just reinforcing that here, explaining that. I mean, really, she's not a bad person. She just cares about surviving and she's willing to do whatever it takes to survive, even if it's something that might look kind of bad. At this time, they are confronted by the planet security control that tells them they need to surrender what they have or they're going to keep getting shot at. So they are now in a sticky situation trying to escape, but also not wanting to lose the formula, not wanting to give it up to the patrol, but then also needing to, put their safety first as well. And at this time, Mace does something that some could probably argue is really not the Jedi way. And he uses this situation as an opportunity to pretty much make Azita agree to give him the formula. And he says that he's going to get her out of this situation with the patrol if she agrees to sell the formula to the Jedi Order and nobody else. And so, of course, she agrees, but she agreed to do this under duress, which is why some people might argue this isn't really the Jedi way. And this is a good example of Mace is willing to do what he feels needs to be done, even if it's something that looks like I was just saying a second ago, even if it's something that looks kind of bad, he's willing to do what needs to be done. But rather than it being for his own survival, it's for the greater good. So these two characters do have that in common that they're both willing to do whatever they need to do, but what they're doing it for is different. Azita's doing it for her own survival. Mace is doing it for what he interprets as the greater good. And so, yeah, she agrees to do it and it ends up working out and the Jedi Order do get what they want, but Mace ended up using an opportunity to make her kind of feel like she didn't really have another option. Which, I'm always over here defending Mace. I mean, maybe it's not the Jedi way, but what's worse? Him doing this or like a crime syndicate getting a hold of this coaxium ultra. So I mean, I think it ended up working out for the best, probably. So after she agrees, Mace tells the security patrol, he transmits a message saying that this is the Jedi Order, stand down, don't get involved. Then we also have somebody else show up who is Yaya, who works for the Hutts. And this is just kind of like somebody else that's just entered the situation that wants the coaxium ultra. And Mace jumps onto Yaya's ship, and I guess the reason for this is because he was going to try to stop this person somehow. I don't know if he was planning on like taking the ship down or capturing the person. I don't really know what he was trying to do when he jumped onto the ship, but at the very least, he was somehow going to get this person to stop firing at Azita's ship. At this time, Yaya ejects from the ship and then triggers a self destruct, so Mace has to get off of it in a hurry. Which of course all works out. So now their plan is that they're going to go to Coruscant, where Azita is going to be paid for the coaxium ultra. So even though Mace kind of made her agree to it, he is still planning on making sure that she's paid for what she is selling them. And when they are just about to go to Coruscant, they're about to get on another ship to go to Coruscant. They are confronted by the people that were spying on them in the cave, which is the Dusk Weavers of the Hattle Path. So it sounds like this is a cult that is against technology, wants to preserve nature, doesn't want the coaxium ultra getting out there because, of course, they view technological advancement as a bad thing, which a lot of times it probably is, but their methods of getting their point across are questionable and violent. So it looks like a fight's about to break out, starting with issue 4. And that's exactly what happens in issue 4. They do kind of go back and forth for a little bit. Mace and the Dusk Weavers of the Hattle Path, they're like kind of arguing. They're trying to explain to Mace what they're doing. What ends up happening is Mace is able to overpower the leader of the Dusk Weavers, even though at one point he overpowers the original two pretty easily. And then the leader comes who is much more powerful and he's able to still defeat him as well. And the Dusk Weavers do seem kind of inconsistent with what they want because at the end of issue 3, they're talking about how they're trying to bring people back to nature. But then in issue 4, once the leader shows up, he seems like he wants the coaxium ultra for himself. So it's kind of like, do you want it to destroy it? Do you want it for yourself? It's kind of unclear if this group actually practices what they preach or if they're just using their message as a way to kind of have something to fight for, but they don't really actually stand by it. Also interesting that this leader of the Dusk Weavers, he does mention that at one point he did receive some Jedi training. And the reason that it didn't work out is because he felt like he actually couldn't get any deep answers to his questions. So he kind of felt like he wasn't really being taught in an honest way. And so that's why it didn't work out. I hate to say it, but that line did kind of remind me of the Acolyte. And the way that this guy ends up going out is kind of funny. I know that probably sounds a little bit morbid, but they're fighting under the ship. Mace brings the ship down on top of the guy. So it looks like he got squished. And it's like, okay, well, that's the end of that. And then the leader, he starts lifting the ship up with his own bare hands. And then it's like, whoa, I can't believe he survived that. And then as soon as he does that, Azita just shoots him. And it's like, okay, well, that's the end of that. And when Mace and Azita are leaving, he also suggests to her that at some point they should go back to Harren Call. And that is their home planet. And Mace, basically his reasoning for suggesting that is he thinks that the two of them could do some good together. He at least saw the value of the two of them working together, which I do think is good because the two of them are people who are willing to do what needs to be done. And so, yeah, I could see this duo actually taking care of business and accomplishing some things together if they wanted to. So it sounds like going forward, they are planning on being friends and working together maybe a little bit in the future. Issue 4 was supposedly the last issue of this series, but it did kind of have me questioning because the last page of issue 4 has the end with a question mark. So I'm wondering if maybe there's going to be another spin-off series, maybe just under a different name, or if this series is going to actually pick back up at some point. I have no idea. But this was definitely the end of this arc, at least, and potentially the end of this story. But based on Mace and Azita's conversation, I have a feeling that we might see these two together again, maybe in another series. So like I said at the beginning of this video, overall, I had a lot of fun with it. I enjoyed getting to see Mace in action a little bit more. Definitely has me so ready to read The Glass Abyss, which is coming up later this year. I can't wait to just get more into his character, especially in written form. And thanks so much for watching, y'all. I hope that y'all have a great rest of your day. Bye, guys.